Okay, that was a quick break. And during the break, I have to be sure, it's like I'm sponsored. This video is brought to you by Mountain Dew. It's not quite Red Bull to give you wings, but it will give you a little bit of a pickup so that you're ready to keep going. So, all right, we are ready to roll now. So we are picking up by doing a sample level 2 conversion that has this structure. And so our example for this one is going to be number 7. And number 7 on the sheet I think we can, I got to double check to make sure you can see that my black whiteboard marker is kind of crapping out on me, but I'm going to try and get at least one more problem out of this. All right, and you can still see it on the video. I'm not going to use it a whole lot. And we want to convert this to okay, so 9.4 E3 nanograms over microliters. So some people might refer to this as nanograms per microliter. And we want to convert this, for some reason, to pounds over kiloquarts. So when you're going, what the hell is a kiloquart? Kiloquart and a quart have the same relationship that a kilogram and a gram have, or a kilometer and a meter have. So again, I'm going to use some pretty messed up units just to challenge you to make sure that you can follow our rules. Okay, let's see, we're going to do some, we'll use the same colors, green and orange. Now you'll notice that I have the slash here, even though I said, oh, don't use that. When I make up the worksheets, I do not have the ability to do the vertical fraction bar. So on these problems, you will see slashes, but when we go to set them up, you will notice I am not going to write a slash. I'm going to use the horizontal fraction bar. Okay, so here we go. Let's start by going, how am I going to get from nanograms to pounds? Now there are a bunch of different ways. You could go nanograms to grams, grams to ounces, ounces to pounds. You could go nanograms to grams, and then grams to pounds. I'm going to do something a little bit oddball. I am going to go from nanograms to kilograms and then go kilograms to pounds. Now, some people go, wait, can you do that? Yes. Anytime you just want to go between any two metric prefixes, you are totally able to do that. And so I'll show you how that works as we process the problem. Now, microliters to kiloquarts. Woo! This one could require a couple, because what we'll probably have to do first is go from microliters to liters, and then if we go liters, we can go from liters to quarts, because that is more of a common thing, but then we are going to have to add the kilo in there. So in doing this, I don't know if you picked up on this on the last problem we did, we had 2 steps for one unit, and then we had 2 steps for the other unit, and that translated to 4 magic H's. This time, we have 2 steps for our mass unit, but our volume unit is going to require us to do 3 steps. So in the end, when we're all set up, we are going to have a total of 5 magic H's put together. But again, if you remember the can't walk and chew gum at the same time, we can only attack these one at a time. Okay, so let's get it going. 9.4 E3. And so I am going to put the nanogram up just so that we can clearly show the fractional relationship. I'm going to put the nanogram over the microliter. And in the end, what we want is pounds over kiloquarts. All right, so since we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, we have to choose where do we start. Most people, I think, because we read top to bottom on a page, are going to start with the nanogram. So that means we're going to suspend our thinking on the volume stuff here, and we'll start with our magic H's, but we're only focused on the nanogram. Now again, the key word, diagonal. So nanogram has to go here. Now we've already mapped out that we're going to go to kilogram. We could have gone to anything else that we could relate a nanogram to, but I told you that I wanted to do this one for a particular reason. We have gram on both of them, but the nano is at a position of -9 because its multiplier is -9, and the kilo is +3. So in following, my structured rules that I usually encourage people to do, I put a 1 with the bigger unit, which is the kilo, and then I put an E on the other one, and then I could either say I'm going to find the difference between the multiplier value for the bigger unit minus the one that's smaller, or I could think of +3, -9, how far apart are they on a number line? Either way, you should end up with the number 12. So this is the correct relationship here. Now, that cancels the nanogram, and I'm left with kilogram, which doesn't get me to my pounds yet, but now in my next one, I do have a relationship, one that you would have to memorize, between kilograms and pounds, but remember the kilogram has to go on the bottom to be diagonal, so it cancels, and then I can introduce pounds up here. And the correct relationship is 1 kilogram is 2.21 pounds. Kilograms cancel, whoop, and I got my pounds, which is what I want right there. So now, let's see, we could say we have walked, but we haven't chewed our gum. So now we are going to stop walking, and now we're going to chew our gum. And we're going to do our microliter to kiloquarts. So that means we got to keep going with the magic H's. So now we'll change colors because now we're focused on a different unit. Now this is where, up to this point in time, for those of you who remember your stoichiometry, you might be thinking, damn, every time you did a magic H, you always put the thing you wanted to go away in the denominator. That's what I learned in stoichiometry. Now, with this type of unit, this is why I tell you the important concept to remember is the word diagonal, not the thing that needs to cancel needs to go on the bottom, because that's not true, because I want microliter to be canceled, but the only way to cancel it is if the microliter is in the numerator in that magic H. And then I could convert this to whatever other unit I wanted. In this case, we're just going to go straight to liters. And if we follow our metric prefix thing, because this is a metric to metric conversion factor, micro is -6, liter doesn't have a prefix, so it's a base unit, so it would be at 0. So the bigger of these two is the liter, so it gets the 1 and the other side gets the E, and the separation between these two would be 0 minus a -6, or how far apart are 0 and 6 on a number line, and the answer to that is 6. So at this point, this micro cancels that one and is gone. We're not where we want to be yet, so we got to go on. Now the next thing we were going to do after we went from microliter to liter is to go from liters to quarts. Now in order to do that, liter has to be diagonal, and quarts would therefore go in the denominator. Now here, I have my preference for how I do this. I think of this kind of as, because the thing I remember easily is 1 gallon is equals to 3.78 liters, but 1 gallon, I grew up cooking with my mom, so I remember 4 quarts in a gallon. So when I use this particular conversion factor, I don't write 1 gallon, I just write the 4 quarts there. And if I needed to get to gallons, I'd put 1 gallon here. So the thing is, I always use the 3.78, but on the other side, I either put 1 for a gallon or 4 if I'm doing quarts. So it depends what I'm converting between. So in this case, I would write it as 4 quarts, and then this would be 3.78 liters. So this liter cancels that one. And now we have quarts in the denominator. So we go through our last step here, which is we want to go between quarts and kiloquarts, and again, diagonal. The quarts have to go up here to be diagonal to cancel, and then we will introduce the kiloquarts here. And the relationship here, that's a positive 3. This is a 0 because it's a base unit, so the bigger of these two is the kiloquart, and that means this gets the E, and the difference or the separation between the two ends up yielding a positive 3 there. And so our quarts cancel. There's my kiloquarts. I got pounds over kiloquarts. I am all set to go. Now all I have to do is the calculation. So I start with my value here, and I don't have to worry about the units because I've already mapped those out. I know I'm going to end up with pounds over kiloquarts. I just need to do the math that's been structured here. So in my first magic H, I got 1 over E12, so that means divide by E12. My next one over is a number over 1, so that means multiply by that value. My next one over is another value over 1, so that means multiply. Oh, got to change colors. Sorry about that. Getting ahead of myself. The next one over is a double 1 because I have a number up top and I have a number on the bottom. So that means I'm going to multiply by the number in the numerator and then divide by the number in the denominator. And in the last one, I have a number over 1. So that means I multiply by that value. Okay, so now 9.4 E3 divide by E12 times 2.21 times E6 times 3.78 divided by 4 times E3. And we get 1.96 E1. How did we do? This one, 1.96 E1. So this one matches exactly what's on there. And the units that would go with this would be pounds over kiloquarts. Okay? Now I'm going to take a moment here to emphasize when we do this as a quiz, what do you need to show? Because if someone says, well, I could just do it in my head and get that answer. That is not how you're going to get your credit on a unit conversion problem. Normally, I will make these problems worth 2 points. And in order to get the complete 2 points, you have to show this structure. You may not end up showing this because after you get good at this, you can do these in your head. But you need to show this structure, and then this year to be, I'm going a little over the top on this one, I want to see this so that I know you're putting the pieces together correctly. So if you say, well, this is worth 2 points, that, I got the right answer. That gets you 1 out of 2. You have to show me the rest of this to eventually get a complete 2 out of 2 on this. Okay? Okay, so now we have done one of the quotient type conversion problems. So we have one problem left to do, and then I can simply tell you, I want you to try all of the problems on the worksheet. Ooh. All right, so the last one that we're going to look at is number 9. This is a big moment. I'm getting a brand new black whiteboard marker out. A little darker, but a little skinnier. So for this one, we are looking at this type of unit. A single one being squared. Now, squared or cubed, once you get the basic idea, I think you'll be able to do either one. So the problem looks like this. 7.53 E8 micrometer squared to centimiles squared. All right? So, here, what we need to remember is that this here, I'm going to do this one in red. Actually, do I have a different color? I'm going to do this in blue. This unit here, I'm going to summarize this kind of shorter than I normally would, so hopefully you'll go, I get what you're talking about. This unit, with it being squared, means exactly what it would mean in math. This thing being squared is that unit multiplied by itself. And that means this one here also means that it's this unit multiplied by itself. So in order to do this problem, what we need to do is we need to take a micrometer to a centimile and then take another micrometer to a centimile. But that's like doing the same thing twice. So if I were to ask you, hey, how do you get from micrometer to centimile? There are a couple different ways, but I want to, I'm going to draw this one out a little bit. I think most people would say, oh, well, I'm comfortable getting from micrometer to meter, and then I am going to go, I'll tell you what, instead of doing that, we're going to do another one of these specialty micro, metric to metric ones. We'll go micro to kilometer, and then we'll go kilometer to mile, and then we could go mile to centimile. So when we set this up, we're going to do it in 3 steps. But there's a quick way of doing this, because we would end up saying, well, if I had to do this once, that would get one of these micrometers to centimile, but then I got to get the other one done as well, which means I'd have to do the same steps a second time. So if we were going to do this the long way, we would have a total of 6 magic H's laid out here. But there is an easier way to do this. So let's get started. 7.53 E8. And I am going to do 2 different colors, but it's not going to be quite as extensive as the last one, because I'm going to have micrometer here, and I want to get centimile over here, but I'll go ahead and use, where'd my green go? I'm going to go ahead and use green, but this is squared, and so is this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by setting up my magic H's just to get micrometer to centimile. So just like I said before, when you had multiple units and we said you can't walk and chew gum at the same time, you can only attack one thing at a time. Our 2 things here is the unit of micrometer and the exponent. And those are 2 separate things. So we're going to ignore temporarily the exponent. And we're only going to focus on let's get the micrometer to the centimile. So that means I need a magic H. This is starting in a numerator. So remember the key word is diagonal. And we are going from micrometer to kilometer. Metric to metric, kind of a prefix conversion factor. That's a +3. This is a -6. So this is bigger. So this gets the E. The separation between +3 and -6 is 9, or you can think of it as 3 minus a -6. Micrometer, cancel. Next one over, this is where we go between kilometer and mile. In order to get rid of the kilometer, it has to be diagonal, so it has to go in the denominator. We can convert it to whatever we want, but we're going to go to mile. This is one that you would have to have memorized. And there are two that you could remember. This is the one we're going to use here. 1 mile is 1.61 kilometers. If you remembered the other one, you'd have a 1 down here and a 0.62 up here. Now the kilometers cancel. We're good to go there. We're not where we want to be yet because we need centimile. So we need mile to be diagonal, and then we can introduce centimile here. Now this is another metric prefix one. Mile doesn't have a prefix, so it would be 0. Centi is -2. So the bigger unit is the mile. The other side gets the E, and we would go 0 minus a -2, or think about how far apart 0 and -2 are on a number line, and we get a 2. Okay, so now we have a setup for a micrometer to a centimile. Now, this is where I am going to do a different color, and I'm going to do something that I do not really want you to do. Because at this point, if you pretended the units look like this one here, you would say, oh, well, I did one of these, but now I got to do the other one. But when you look at the other one that you got to do, it's exactly the same thing you just did. So if you went through the same process, you would end up with the exact same 3 tacked on to the end of this. So it would look like that would be a waste of space. Because if you look at what you're doing here, this first step here is exactly the same thing you had going here. So it's basically, you're going to end up doing this twice. This is where the green comes in. Now we said we can't walk and chew gum, so we went ahead and walked and didn't chew gum. Now we got to flip it. Now we come into this. Now we're not going to mess with this, but we actually have 2 of these. So that means all I need to do is square this step. And this second step, it's identical. That means this step is going to get squared. And the last one is identical, so that one's going to get squared. Now the beauty here is on the class calculators that I have, they have specific dedicated x squared and x cubed buttons. And you can just punch them when you need them, and they do exactly what you need. So that's why I'm really going to push you to use them, because I don't allow you to use graphing calculators in class. So this thing right here in orange, I do not want you to do that. What I want you to do is this thing that I did in green. So now when it comes time to say, all right, well, how do I calculate this? This is going to be very similar to what you already would have done, except you just got to remember the exponent. So that means when you go to this first magic H to calculate it, you have 1 over E9. So that means you divide by E9. But when you get to this point, you use the squared capability on your calculator. Now this is where different calculators function differently, and you have to understand how your calculator works. And when it comes to processing the calculations, there are different people have different comfort levels with their calculator. I leave you to yourself. In the end, if you have a system that gets you the right answer, I can live with that. But if you set things up properly, but you're not getting the right value on the answer, it's because somehow things are not, you're not interacting with your calculator correctly. Sometimes I just have to sit there and watch you punch the buttons on your calculator to end up saying, oh, you did that in the wrong order. And we'll make some kind of correction for you. So first step done. When we go to the second one, it's 1 over, so that means we have to divide. We have to divide by 1.61, but it needs to be squared. So we would tell the calculator to square. The last step here is we have a number over 1, so that means we need to multiply, and that step needs to be squared as well. And again, there are different ways to process this. There are some people who go, well, I know this squared is E18 and this squared is E4. Again, I leave it to you, but I want to see how you structure this calculation. Because sometimes there are some people who would say, can't I just do something like this and then put the square out here and not do the individual steps? Yeah, but you got to be sure you do it right on your calculator. All right? So this is why I very much value, I'm going to call it more of a step-by-step, old-fashioned approach. And then later on, as you get more comfortable, you can, I don't want to call it skip steps, but you can consolidate things. So on the calculator, we start with 7.53 E8. We divide by E9, and then I hit the squared button. Then I go to the next thing. I have to divide by 1.61, hit the squared button. And then I have to multiply by E2, hit the squared button. And then when I'm done, I can hit equal. And what I'm seeing on my calculator is 2.90 E negative 6. Let's check our number. This is, when I did the key, I must have used a different conversion factor. I might have used the 0.62 over 1 here. The answer says 2.91, but I do have the E6, E negative 6, and this would be centimiles squared. Okay? Now, when you look at this and go, yeah, but what do I do if it's cubed? You do exactly what we did here. The only difference is the individual steps would get cubed instead of squared. And again, in my class calculator, there is a dedicated cube button that works exactly like the square button. So if you can do a square, you should be able to do a cube. So now at this point, we have taken you through all 3 different types of structures for level 2 problems. A times B, A over B, and A squared or A cubed. And there is a level 2 worksheet that has a total of 12 problems. We've done 3 of them, 1 of each type. So your assignment is to practice on the other 9. But remember, when we go to do this as a quiz, I have to see all of this if you want full credit for this. And when we go, well, damn, what do we get to when we got level 3 and level 4? I will say that if you understand and are rock solid with your level 1 and level 2 unit conversions, you should easily be able to do level 3 and level 4, because the only thing we're going to do is add more stuff into it, but you will follow exactly the same rules. Set stuff up diagonally, put the right thing in the right place, and if there's an exponent, put the exponent in the right place. Okay? So, big step forward. I'll try and get this set up so you have it by early next week so you can really dive in. Any questions, you can ask me or save them, and then we'll be back to do level 3 and level 4, and that really is going to complete all of the summer work videos that I have for you. So again, if you're getting this, you're like, oh, piece of cake, you're in good shape. All right? See you later.